when you're reflecting back on your life at the end of it, are you going to have a ton of regrets that you wish you had done differently? That's what we're going to be discussing in today's episode of Souls in Bloom. Hey everyone, I'm Laura.
I'm Kristen.
This is Souls in Bloom, where Kristen and I have open, candid conversations in hopes of inspiring your personal growth and ours. We're kind of doing things a little differently today because usually we have a topic, we've done research on it, we got some solutions to suggest. Today we just kind of have a list more or less of end of life regrets, and we were just going to have kind of an open conversation about it. And we just kind of see where things go, because just an interesting topic of conversation.
See if maybe we have things that we don't want to be regretting. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe people have bucket lists that we can, discuss too. So let's see.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. I need to figure out a bucket list for myself, because I have no idea. There's like a handful of trips I'd like to take with a family.
Yeah, I have like some ideas of like places I want to travel, but other than that, I don't have like an actual list.
Right.
But I know a lot of people that do.
Yeah. Well, we're going to start right there with your comments in the comments section. If you've got a bucket list, what's at the top of your bucket list? I would be curious to know that. But the question is, are you going to regret it if you don't ever do it? And that actually was not something I came across. So we had done some research on people's end of life regrets. That is like they're terminal or they're on their deathbed and they are kind of confessing some things they wish they had done differently. Personally, I've, known family members to pass, but I haven't had these conversations with them. So I don't know what they would say, but it was very interesting reading about other people's experience with it. So I specifically looked at two different sources. I looked at a bunch of anecdotal sources, and they're more or less the same things. Two sources. One was oldcolonyhospice.org. And then the other one was the founder of the End Well Foundation, which was Shoshana Ungerleider. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. But the lists were really interesting to me. I don't know. But we were talking right before the show about, you started saying it, and I thought, wait, I was like, let's just have this conversation while we're recording, because for obvious reasons. But the work thing, because you're talking about your coworker, and apparently that's like on the top 5 list, is people wish they did not work as much or as hard and sacrifice time doing other things.
Right. And in the situation I was briefly talking to you about, this girl, I guess you can call her a girl. She was in her 30s, early 30s. When I used to work in health insurance way back when, she worked too much. And that's all she did. She was, like I said, she was young. She was married. They had a house together, but all she did was work. She never went out on the weekends, not even to the movies. Her husband did like to go like out to dinner and to the bar or whatever. And she would go out to dinner, but then they would go home, like, no bars, no clubs, no like typical, like 20 to 30-year-old things. She didn't have any friends, and instead she just, saved all her money. And I don't know, like, is that really what she wanted? Or is that what maybe she was told, maybe what she was taught? Like from family, her parents always told her to save, but like working with her, and she would tell me like what she didn't do on the weekends. So, I'd come in Monday, hey, what'd you do over the weekend? Oh, nothing, or, whatever. I would think to myself, like, is that really what you want? Like when you get older, even in your 60s, 70s, 80s, are you going to be like, well, no, I've never been to a club. I never did this. I never went here. I never, to me, that would bother me, I think. Like,
yeah.
You're missing out on your adolescence, I guess, your, experiences, and maybe certain things aren't for everyone, which is fine, but she didn't do like anything, like nothing, like,
yeah.
So is that something she might regret?
Probably. It's a top 5 regrets, so I'm gonna say it's entirely possible
Yeah,
when
I
she
mean,
gets to
even
that
for
point.
me, like I said, everyone's different, but for me, I didn't start, the bar scene until I was 25. I
Mhm.
was in a serious relationship, and he didn't like the bar or club scene, so I didn't go. So, long story short, I found bars and clubs, New York City nightlife, all that stuff when I was 25. I
Mhm.
felt like I missed out on so much, even only being at 25.
You mean,
So
like, before like, you felt like you were late to the
yeah,
game
like I
here?
was like a
Really?
late yeah, I was like a late
Interesting.
bloomer, because like I'd
Yeah.
meet people at the clubs or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, oh, this place is great. You've been coming here long or whatever." I'd be like, "No, it's my first time." They'd be like, "What?" Or
Yeah.
we'd get in conversation, and I'd tell them I just started, the club scene. It's only a couple months or whatever, and people are like years in, like, "Oh, I've been going
Yeah.
to this club for 10 years or whatever." Like, so yeah, like I
That's
felt
so
like I missed
funny.
out.
This is another way I like having these conversations with you because our lives are so different. I like getting these, like, different perspectives
Yep.
because I was doing, like, the party scene really early and I was drinking early, but
Yeah.
I had a kid when I was 25. So, like, we calmed down on the bar stuff real fast.
Right,
And I
right.
just like I was never really into it either. Even when I did, have the freedom to do it, it wasn't really I didn't have fun doing it. It could
Yeah.
just be where I was, I wasn't in New York. I was in freaking Northern Virginia. It's like, oh,
Well,
oh, the
that's like
nightclubs in Nova.
that's like where
No.
I am now. There is
Yeah.
nowhere to go. There's
Mhm.
the local restaurant that has a bar, and
Yeah.
everybody knows everybody. So,
Yeah. Exactly, the
but
small town bar. Yeah. Sometimes those can be fun though.
oh, yeah, it
But
is sometimes.
I wonder that about those people that don't turn their phone off at night, or like they have their phone all the time, like waiting for the work email to pop in so they can respond to it immediately and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I feel like in a way that's kind of the fault of the job, maybe not necessarily the person, because I feel like sometimes like that pressure is on the person to respond quickly,
Yeah.
even though they're not getting paid for that. They're just like expected to respond to these emails or whatever after
Yep.
hours. I don't think that's really fair. But if you allow your company to do that to you, and that takes away from your time from your friends or family or whoever you're spending it with when you get that email and you're like, hold on, I got to go answer this really quick or
Yeah.
respond or whatever.
Yep. And that's
So
that's another thing, like working too much takes away, like she didn't have kids at the time, but like it takes away from, spending time with your children, your parents, your, whatever, the loved ones. So like you're missing out, you could be missing out on like, sports games, school plays, whatever.
mhm.
And like, is
Yeah,
it really worth it? Like, I don't
yeah.
know. Like,
And that's another one of the top regrets is not spending enough time with friends and family.
yep.
Like they wish they had spent more time with loved ones. And
Yep.
so it's kind of funny the way that some of these things like tie into each other
Yeah.
like that, the work relationship. Because I feel like if you're not spending times with loved ones, what are you doing? You're probably working. Like what else would you be doing during that
Right.
time?
Yeah.
Unless you're like pursuing a solo hobby or something like that. I
Hmm.
guess I could see that. Like some people, they have like go on, I don't even know, hunting or fishing. Could you tell I'm a country girl? This is what comes to my mind first. So I don't know. What else would you do that's not spending time with somebody else?
Yeah.
So like it's got to be work. Work. Darn you.
Or if it's like a friend, they could just be making an excuse not to hang out, or maybe just, isn't the right time, or they're busy, whatever. But then,
Mhm.
people could also take that for granted. Like, oh, I'll just see them next week, or I'll just see them next month. Or then that turns into years. And before you know it, you're like, holy crap, I haven't seen so and so in 12 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think taking it for granted too is a big part of it.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. And I know I'm in that boat personally, just not that was another one. Keeping or staying in touch with friends was another
Yeah.
one, and I'm guilty of that big time. That's part of moving out to the country and then starting my own family. I and having 15,000 hobbies. It's like I keep myself extremely busy, and I
Hmm.
don't admittedly make enough time to like keep those
Yeah.
connections up. Fortunately, like people that I'm thinking of that I have in mind saying this are the type of friends that like when we do talk, it's like the conversation just flows kind of thing, you know? And
Like it
that's
never,
nice.
like it was like there was not a big gap in between the last time.
Right.
You pick
Yeah,
up like where you left off. Yeah. Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
And so that's nice. But on
Mhm.
the other hand, like, yeah, I can totally see like regretting not having put more effort into like actually physically see those people or
Yeah.
something like that. So here, this one, this probably speaks to me. Well, now we have one like a final one that we'll get to at the end. So stay tuned for the final big whammy one. But this one really spoke to me. Not living life as your true self or like suppressing the authentic you. I don't feel that way as much now, but definitely through my youth, I was a people pleaser. Oh, my mom always said I wore many hats. It was like I was trying all these different things to like find out where I fit in and
Yeah.
never really truly thought like what makes me happy, you know, like,
Uh-huh.
you know, I don't know, just in my style and my taste of music even. I remember in like elementary school, I was listening to like music that I just did not like, but everybody else liked it. So I was like, okay, I know I'm probably not going to be on my deathbed thinking back to like, I wish I didn't listen to that rap in elementary school. But like, you know, there's a lot of times in my probably throughout my 20s, like my later teens into my 20s, where I was very much like very agreeable to doing things I didn't want to do just to be a people
Yeah.
pleaser and like not really being my authentic self and like, you know,
Just
advocating for myself and, you know,
yeah.
and I think a
But
lot of people could probably relate to that one.
yeah, and hopefully like you did, like you grew out of that. A lot of people don't. And like you
Yeah.
said, they might lose themselves in pleasing everybody, wearing all those different hats. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just got to take a step back and think like, do I really want to do that, or do I really like doing that? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, can always things can always change.
That's true. But it can definitely be difficult to find a voice for yourself, especially with certain people, because I think we all have those people in our life that like we feel like we can't say no to, or I don't know, or we want to please them too, or I don't know, put them
Yeah.
before us, you know, just,
Yep.
but I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so before we continue on with the actual list, you would kind of, I don't know, what is your thoughts on like regrets in general? What's your perspective on regrets? Do you have any regrets at this point in your life?
I mean, there are things that like maybe I wish I didn't do or could have done differently, but
Mhm.
I think like to me like a regret, is it really a regret because at that moment in time of whatever that had happened, you wanted that. Like whatever happened in that moment, you made that choice. You wanted to do it for the most part. I mean, there's
Right.
obvious stipulations to everything, but I
Yeah.
think back like to something that I may think is a regret, or maybe was it just like a bad decision? Maybe was it just some poor judgment, or
Mhm.
is it a learning experience, or do you actually regret it? Like you're just so upset with yourself that you wish you didn't do it. But to me, it's like you wanted it at that time. You made that decision at that time. It was what you wanted. I thought, I would think.
Yeah.
Look back on it and be like, damn, that was stupid. Or
We probably all have a few. You know, I read something that was interesting, someone's perspective that I thought was interesting about that. And she was saying, like, the reason we regret things is because the decision we made didn't turn out the way we thought it would. And in our minds, when we're going back and thinking, like, okay, how could I have done this differently? The alternative in your mind results in the better outcome. But it's like
Mm,
you have no way of knowing if your decision actually was for the best. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean the other way would have worked out, you know?
yeah,
So
I like that.
yeah, I thought that was interesting because it's true when you do think like, "Oh, God, I wish I didn't do that." It's like, well, where would you have been if you had done or
Hmm.
you hadn't done it? You know, you took the other choice. Maybe things would have been even worse. Like, you know, you have no way. It's like the butterfly effect. If you ever saw that movie, that was a really
Yeah.
good movie. Um, it was so if you haven't seen it, basically the premise is that this guy goes back in time and he changes these like small minute things in his life and just his life is completely altered when he like comes back to the present time, and
Hmm.
pretty much every time something's totally screwed up and wrong in the present time, so it's like it doesn't matter what he chooses, things go awry. And so I don't know, something to keep in mind. I know that was just a movie, but we can't know. We can't
Yeah.
know.
Right.
Personally, I don't really live with regret. The only thing off the top of my head, and like I'm so sorry because I feel like I talk about my kids every freaking time we do a show, but
That's
they are a
okay.
pretty big part of my life. So
Yeah.
I waited about 4 years. No, maybe not quite 4 years, but around 4 years before I started even thinking about having a second kid. So there's altogether there's a 5 year age gap between my first and my second. And then there's like 20 months between my second and my third. And now we're back to 6 months, or I mean 6 years between the last one and this one. But in any case, so that first one, I wish I had started sooner trying for another kid.
Mhm.
And I don't want to say it's a regret per se though, because my philosophy on regrets is like if I think about my life, am I happy where I am? And I am. And so even though I did a ton of crap in my life I wish I didn't experience, it's like if I hadn't experienced that then, I wouldn't be where I am now. So all that, anything I went through that was not good was like brought me to where I am now. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to regret stuff that brought me here.
Very true. Yep.
So even though yeah, like I made bad decisions and like
Yeah.
there's stuff I don't know, don't want to get too deep on this, but long story short, like there's nothing I could do to change the past anyway, and it doesn't matter because like yeah, I am happy where I am now. So for me personally, I don't have regrets because I'm happy where I am.
Yeah.
But on my deathbed, am I gonna have that same thought process? I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't ever know that till I'm there, right? So
No, but I agree. I don't think, I don't think you would necessarily have done it if you were going to regret it, if you thought you would regret it. You know what I mean? For the
right,
most.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
like when I think back, I don't really think that there's anything I regret. Like you said, it was maybe something like now we think it's a bad decision, but then it wasn't.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because who's to say, like, if I had tried to have a kid earlier, who's to say, like, I would have actually gotten pregnant? Maybe I would have had like infertility issues or something like that. That would have been an even harder road. And then maybe eventually I'd get pregnant and I'd end up on the same timeline anyway. But in that timeline, I have all the like struggles on top of it. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
as a total example, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to downplay the seriousness of, that situation for people,
Yeah.
but just saying there's like you have no way of knowing. Yeah, no way of knowing. So
Exactly.
uh, um this fear letting fear drive. So this isn't one like that Shoshana. That's a tongue twister. This is just like what do you call it? Paraphrasing. I didn't write down word for word what she said, but
Hmm.
people regret letting fear drive their decisions rather than taking chances and risks. And then
Yes.
now we kind of had this conversation. Didn't we do a podcast on this?
Hmm.
On just starting. And what was it?
Yeah.
I can't remember specifically the topic where this is relevant, but I can
Well,
paraphrase.
yeah, it had a lot to do with like just starting or
Yeah.
like just doing something because instead of staying in fear, you're preventing yourself from progressing or experiencing or, whatever. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that could be a regret.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I mean, I can definitely relate to that too, but more so, and this kind of ties in with another thing the same person says, too much focus on future, not being present in the present
Mm,
moment.
Mhm.
That's me to a T. I think it's probably anyone who suffers with anxiety or struggles with it at all. I'm definitely like, whew, I can go down some spirals, some doom spirals on like crap that's not even feasible, but I'm just like, oh no. And then in that moment, everything that's like relevant and I could be so grateful for whatever I have in that moment is just out the window because I'm like,
Mhm.
but this thing, this horrible scenario, what if?
Mhm.
It's crazy
Yeah.
stuff. But so it is apparently a top regret. People feel like they focus too much on that, on things in the future, and also like fear that would stop them from doing new things.
Yeah. Even
I can
even
see that for
focusing
sure.
too much, even focusing too much on the past.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
my sister's husband, I mean, he holds grudges and he holds things from the past so much that it affects his day-to-day life, his relationships, and it does prevent him from moving forward in a lot of things. So that's huge. You got to try to let that go. It happened in the past. There's nothing anyone can do to change it. I mean, I
Mhm.
used to be the same way. I still kind of am with some things, but forgiving and forgetting type of thing, I have a hard
Right.
time with. But for
Yeah.
the most part, if it happened in the past, like there's literally nothing I can do. So me getting pissed about it, upset over it, whatever the emotion is not worth it, because what's that going to do to me, for me?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. That's very true. And
Hmm.
in that, or you kind of have to remember, like, especially if it's people, these people that are making you upset are like still getting the better of you, like way after the scenario is dealt with, and like
Yeah.
they're kind of winning. You
Hmm.
can't let them win
Yeah.
again. They already got the best of you. You got mad about it, and you're still mad. You can't do that because you're
Hmm.
just going to taint everything going forward.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's a hard one though. It's hard to let go of stuff because, especially when there's no resolution to it.
Hmm.
If you get in a fight with somebody or something like that, and you never have that like final like or like them acknowledging you were right or like whatever the scenario is,
Yeah.
then it's just unresolved and it just leaves you feeling ticked off.
Yeah, I can definitely vouch for that. But in the past, what I've done is to just move on, even from that friendship. There've
Mhm.
been friendships. Um, I know it might be a little harder if it's like a family member, but
Yeah.
for me, like if I feel that way about somebody and it's just not going to work out, I just move on from them. Like there will always be people that come in and out of your life, like friends and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get upset or have anxiety or whatever the emotion over somebody that's doing something or making me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on
Yeah.
and just leave them and be like, listen, this isn't working out. I actually just recently did that with somebody, but we're not going to get into that.
Listen,
But you know who I'm talking about.
that's a green room conversation. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to do that. So, and you got to. I mean, this kind of goes back to advocating for yourself. Sometimes you got to do that by like
Mm,
trimming the fat on your friends or family. I hate to say it, but sometimes people are just toxic to your life and
mm,
they're not going to be beneficial to you and your goals. And
mm.
as we're learning, clearly, like we got to speak up for ourselves and be advocates for ourselves and our goals and dreams and stuff too. They're also important, not just everybody else's. So if you have people that are just totally detrimental to you, that's my suggestion.
Yeah.
We're having a conversation and set up clear boundaries, but
Yeah. But on the flip
that's the art of
side,
saying no.
what'd you say?
I said that's the art of saying no.
Oh,
The
yes.
other one we did.
Oh,
The other
wait, are we
one.
gonna like plug like each of our episodes, because we seem to be like touching on a
Referencing
lot of
them.
our episodes.
I guess I can. I'll put links
That's
in
cool.
the description box to go check out these videos. I'll probably link one of them. I think we did the other one last time.
Yeah,
I'll link it at the
that's
end of the
cool
video so
though.
you guys can, if you're not done hanging out with us, check out the next video. Um, okay, so I think I hit everything on my list,
But
but
like, real quick, back to like the last thing we were just talking about. On the flip
yeah,
side of it, because I know that was kind of like a little negative what we're saying. Oh, just move on from people. On the flip side, maybe the people that you do have in your life and that you love, maybe you should tell them you love them more. Like maybe your parents or
yeah,
your
like that.
significant other.
Yeah,
Um, because we take that for granted too. Like for example, I talk to my mom, multiple times a week. But do we ever say I love you? No, because maybe we take that for granted. Oh, there'll be another time that I talk to her or whatever. What about if
yeah,
there's not?
yeah,
And that actually happened to somebody, a friend of mine on YouTube. She lost her mother unexpectedly, and I reached out and, I helped her. She was needing some help with the funeral and stuff like that. Anyway, I was like, are you okay? Like, let me know if there's anything I can do for you, like whatever. And she's like, the one thing that you can do for me is hug your mom.
Oh,
Tell her you love her. And I'm like,
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
so, I don't want to get emotional. I'm like sweating on my sleeves. So, that's like it's the little things like that, even your kids, your husband, your wife, whoever, like, your sister, like give her a hug every once in a while, a brother, like whatever.
Yeah.
And, cause you never know, and you don't want to be that person that's like, damn it, I fought with them and now look what happened or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
It's
little
true.
things like that.
I think it's funny because one of the regrets, this regret specifically of not spending enough time with your loved ones. I feel like when we truly love somebody else, like love another family member, person, whatever, care for somebody in like a true, compassionate, want to spend time with them way, I just don't think that there's ever enough time. I think
No.
that's what that regret comes down to. I don't think it, I think when we lose somebody we're close to, we wish we spent more time with them. And then when that person's life is ending and they're thinking about it, they wish they spent more time with us, maybe, or, whoever.
Yeah.
And I just think that's just human design. I don't know if you can ever satisfy that regret. No, I know that's, I'm turning it back to a negative, but I didn't mean to
Well,
do
that's
that.
okay.
But seriously though, do we ever get enough time? I don't know that we do, because I just don't know if you will ever feel like, does someone ever die and you're like, man, I'm glad we spent that time together, and like I didn't need any more. We're good. Like nobody does that. We're like, oh,
Right.
I could have done XYZ one more time. That's always what it is. So,
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
think
if you
it's
can
just I
satisfy
think it's
that.
just how we think. It
Yeah.
is.
And
We go to the negatives usually.
yeah, I mean, well, death is not necessarily a positive subject, but hopefully we're motivating you and not depressing you. That's
Yeah.
is our goal in general with this podcast, is to try to inspire you to, act on these things now while you can, so that you're not like, oh, everything on this list relates to me now, now it's too late to do anything about it.
Oh
Don't
wait,
do
this reminds me of this reminds me of another podcast episode.
it.
Use the
Okay.
things. Use the things.
Yes, use the things. That's right. Oh man, we're hitting all of them tonight. Yeah, use the things. And if you don't know what that was all about, not saving things for a special occasion, just using the nice things and everything now, because why not? The
Mhm.
only thing like you should be saving is like holiday themed things for the holiday. I can understand that. You're not
Yeah.
going to put your Santa Claus tablecloth out on the 4th of July. I understand that. Unless you're having a Christmas and July party, then maybe you are. We get
Yep.
that. But don't, wear the fancy ring, use the fancy glasses, put
Mhm.
on your sparkly stilettos and walk around your house, vacuum in those. Why not?
Ooh la la.
Ugh. So yeah, don't regret not using the thing either. That's a good point.
Yep.
All right, should we
Another
get
thing, another thing I have written down is like about money. I
okay.
have a lot of people that, are savers. I have a lot of people that are spenders. And I had talked about this in a previous podcast, but a lot of people, I don't remember which one. Okay. I can't
I
pinpoint
think it was
which
the
one.
same podcast. But anyway, go on.
It's about just that money is replenishable. So don't always think that you have to save like every penny, like, oh my gosh, like I can't go out and do this because I have to save the money. Like, yeah, I get it. Things, you need to save money for certain things and everything, but also find yourself that medium where you can have a little fun or go on that vacation. There's a thing called saving. My sister has a really bad habit of just saying all the time that, oh, we don't have the money to do that. We don't have the money for that. We don't, but you do, you can have it. You just may not have it right now. And it's always replenishable. It's always coming in. If you have a job, if you have Social Security, if you know what I mean? So don't be so hard on yourself about spending or saving or anything like that, because there's always going to be more coming back to you.
Yeah. I would say maybe to modify that statement is maybe like, prioritize things.
Well,
Or
yeah.
not spending your money on random junk or like,
Right. Right. Like there's things that need to be obviously paid for. Your bills have to be paid for. You can save for certain things, but for the most part, make sure you're enjoying yourself too. Don't be so like crazy with the saving. Have a budget some money out as like like an allowance, or like, play money or something that you can go maybe once a month and treat yourself, or maybe, whatever, a vacation here or there.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I like that, the budgeting idea, because you shouldn't be living in this constant state of, oh my gosh, what if? And then you don't enjoy anything in the present time because you're so planning so much ahead for like all this stuff in the future that you may never even need anyway.
Yeah.
So to allocate a little bit of it for you to do something that brings you joy now, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I think that's a very good thing, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything big, but just make sure you are doing the little things that maybe can bring you some joy.
Yes. I like that suggestion. Was there anything else on your list? Because I was going to go with the last one.
No, I think I'm good. What's the last one? What's the last one?
So, okay, so I did not tell this to Kristen. So when I was reading, these two sites had this same thing as one of their top fives, or however many there was on the Shoshana one. Top 5 regrets. And then when I was reading anecdotally, I saw this repeatedly and I found it so interesting. It's something we can all implement right now in this moment. Maybe we can even do a full show devoted to it later. Choosing happiness. Mm-hmm. Apparently, a lot of people at the end of their life look back on their life and realize that happiness is a choice. Maybe not all the time. Obviously, there's going to be things that make us sad, but like a lot of times people choose their emotions. They could be happy about something. They could let this thing go, but instead they dwell on it, like we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. And so on all these lists was that people wished that they had chosen to be happier, let themselves be happier, rather than letting negative feelings and things like that fuel their life. And so choose happiness or choose joy. So I've heard that phrase as well many times. And I just thought that was very, I don't know, a good way to like, yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to pick that mindset.
Yes.
Make that choice.
Yep. Because obviously that's going to like leach into every other part of your life if you can have a positive mindset.
Yep.
Very hard thing to do, especially if you're like, one, again, an anxious person, or just like years of training yourself to go to these worst case scenarios and all that, which I think we talked about on another podcast. But, it's just so, you can choose to feel happy about things, and that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about feeling happy either. That's another thing I think people do sometimes. So
yeah,
that was like, I don't know, the final thing I wanted to comment on was that, because I thought it was really interesting, because it's not even something you think of. Okay, yeah, like how I spend my money. Okay, yeah, spending more time with people. Okay, yeah, but choosing to be happy is like, very interesting that is a very common one for a lot of people, because it's not a conversation that happens like
No.
in general very often.
Right. And I think that's a great like final statement.
Yep. And with that,
and with that,
yeah, if you guys don't know, I guess we'll promote our podcast a little bit here. If you don't know, we're on Apple Podcasts if you prefer to just listen to us yammer instead of watching us yammer. And and that's it for this one. I don't know, we might have to talk about some of these in a future podcast and dive in a little deeper because it's fascinating. But in the meantime, here, if you guys aren't done hanging out, check out the video that's on the screen. And that's going to be it for us tonight, right? Yes?
Yeah.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new one. Until then, we hope you guys have an awesome time.
Have an awesome 2 weeks.
I don't know. Choose joy, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.